I was thinking too, honestly.
Like the first one will be the best. And you'll be like, someone in oh, you got him back already?
Yeah, I think so.
And then the second one will be you
gotta fly. You gotta fly.
Shoot, guys.
Come on, get him. Get him, Robbie. Get him. Get him. Oh, he's on Okay, Ed, get out of the way. Your head.
I can't help it. You gotta stand up.
Hi, Dad. Are you ready? Hi, Dad.
Oh, you got your mouth from your mama.
Yeah, I am a teacher. Right.
No, they said that they would start serving once we're all sitting. So that's
Talk louder. I can't hear. You need a
they
megaphone.
said, you know, once we're all sitting, they would start serving. So thought we'd say just a few words. I'm gonna say, make it real short. Tom Hannon sent Bob some notes for him to read from him. So I'll be short and sweet here. And so I just wrote, Carol, how we wish you were here physically with us today. But we're sure you're looking down on us, very proud that we are all here today celebrating your life. I'm sure you're with John, Georgine, Tom, Marty, and of course, Mom and Daddy. This is supposed to be a celebration, not a sad fest, so let's think of fun and good times we've all had together. Actually, the first thing that comes to my mind is what a kind, loving person Carol always was. She was so kind to everyone. I had called Trish, Tom's niece, to extend my condolences. We shared a few stories. The one that stood out the most to me was Trish saying she was a teenager and her mom and dad, Tom's brother, had a family barbecue. She said Carol walked in, and of course you know the beauty she was even in her teenage years. She said she looked so beautiful. She was wearing a crop top and shorts. And she said she kept telling Carol, she said, here I was only a teenager, and you know teenagers, I kept saying, oh, I love your crop top, oh, I love your crop top. Well, you guessed it, Carol and Tom were leaving, and Carol had on a different top on, given to Carol by Tom's sister-in-law. Carol handed Trish her crop top. No surprise there. Carol was always so giving, a day Trish said she would never forget. Another story was Tom was driving me and Carol to San Francisco one day, and he warned Carol, Carol, do not give a dime to the panhandlers down by the wharf. Okay, honey, she replied. He dropped us off, and within minutes, she was approached by a Chevy man. I'll never forget it. And he dropped us off. Within minutes, she was approached by the Chevy-looking man. She opened her purse and took out $1. I couldn't help but laugh. I said, Carol, what did Tom just tell you? She said, oh, if I lose $1, it really is not a big thing, but he may really need it, so we just won't tell Tom. That was Carol again. And then, how about the time, oh, this was funny, they were staying at John and Mary Kay's house by my father, and Carol had to stop, was staying there actually, and Goofy John was kind of concerned because she really left her vodka. And he kept saying, you know, Carol, I don't know with that vodka. Oh, no, I'm fine. So he thought he'd be real funny. She comes downstairs. He's got a bowl on the table with a spoon, a thing of Cheerios, and a bottle of vodka.
Breakfast.
Carol, I remember that too. And it was so funny. And at that time, he thought she just liked vodka a little too much. So to be funny, John set up the table, like I said, with that. And she had to reassure him that she really didn't drink vodka for breakfast. He really thought he was a riot doing that. So I could go on and on. There's so many stories, but I won't. I'll give someone else a chance. But one more thing, we're so happy to see Pat here. He had a very tough 2.5 years. Thank you, Liz, for making a good
Yes. And Stephanie.
And Steph. Yes. happy days ahead for all of us. That's all I gotta say, so Bob, if you wanna say what Tom said.
Oh. You need the goggles. You need the goggles on. Okay. I was wondering where you were going.
All right. So this is from Uncle Tom. His opening words were, "Sure wish I could be there to celebrate Carol's life with the family, but I was lucky enough to have 50 years of heaven on earth with an angel." Story number 1. When we got married, neither of us had a job or much money. A friend told about a job opening as a teacher in a school district in the East Bay. She applied and got an interview. I drove her to the interview at 7 p.m. This was an inner city school district, mainly in Chicano. They knew she was an ex-nut. I waited outside. 6 educators were seated with the principal for the interview. After the initial introduction, the principal got right to it. We've always taught private school where the children behave or they were expelled. Things are different here. Students act out. You have to deal with it. Can you handle that? Carol replied by saying, "Do you mean if I walked into the classroom one morning with all the students present and there was a written sign on the blackboard saying, 'Fuck you, Mrs. Hannon,' how would I deal with it?" The principal stammered. "Well, I guess that's what I mean." Carol proceeded to tell him how she would deal with it. The meeting ended in 20 minutes. She got the job. The meeting would have another 30 minutes with more questions about being able to cope with inner city kids. She took the wind right out of their sails. Where that came from, I will never know. She never used that kind of language. Story number 2. We got married in our apartment. A priest friend married us with 7 people present, including Maureen and Don. A friend drove us to the airport for a 7-night tour of 3 Hawaiian islands. Our first night was in Maui. We arrived in the afternoon at our hotel. Carol went to unpack and came back in tears. She couldn't find the birth control pills Maureen had packed. I decided to go find a drugstore. With no job, we could not afford it. I walked around the hotel area for 45 minutes on a very warm afternoon with no luck. I went back to our hotel room exhausted to find Carol elated and in her nightie. She found pills. I went over to the bed and passed out for 2 hours. But we did live happily ever after. I've got one more story. It's not explicitly about Carol, but I think it's relevant nonetheless. This is again from Uncle Tom. About 5 months after we were married, Pat flew out with Gene to check out his new son-in-law. We got along fine. I passed the litmus test. I still didn't have a job, so there was lots of time for sightseeing. One trip we took was an overnight drive to Lake Tahoe. We got a motel at State Line, right across from a large Harris casino. I offered to take Pat over, but based on his encounters with the mafia, he said no. That evening, we went out to dinner. There was a side door that bypassed the gambling area and nearly all slot machines. We had a great dinner. On the way out, we walked through the main entrance where there were super large slot machines. A lady just walked away from one, and I went over, put a silver dollar in, pull the handle. All of a sudden, bells start, lights flash on the machine. I want $150. The next morning, we got up for breakfast. We could not find Pat. After a short search, we discovered him in the casino playing the slot machines.
Runs in the family. Runs in the family.
All right. So that's it from Uncle Tom. Apologize for not being able to be here. Carol. Thank you. Love you.